I think it does come as a shock sometimes when people realize that you can actually argue profitably about moral issues. That it's not solely a matter of bare opinion. It may, of course, be that when it comes down to it, that morality is a matter of opinions, but that doesn't mean that it's a non-rational area of life, meaning that you can't argue about it, that it doesn't make sense to provide an argumentative foundation for opinions. It certainly does. And here we are talking about the issue of abortion, which is essentially an ethical or moral issue, whether, as Don Marquis says, abortion is sort of fundamentally immoral. At least most abortions would be considered to be immoral, wrong, or whether abortion is morally defensible, which is certainly what Judith Jarvis Thomson is trying to establish. These are really classic, I think, great essays on this subject by Thomson and Marquis. And they're the kind of thing where you can actually say what the argument is. One of the things that I think makes them both so interesting is that they don't take the usual approach to the issue. On my reading, neither Thomson nor Marquis in any way depends upon some answer to the question whether the fetus is a person in order to make their argument. That is, Marquis is giving you an anti-abortion argument, and he does not try to establish that the fetus is a human being or a person. Thomson is defending abortion, and she says right here, early on page 48, that I propose then that we grant that the fetus is a person from the moment of conception. Which is, probably not something that she really believes, but she doesn't need to, that she can make her argument conceding this. What we see is like the key point usually in the abortion debate, right? Whether the fetus is a person, whether the fetus is a human being. And of course, that's a technical distinction that's important in the abortion debate. But here it's not important. This is a defense of abortion, the moral permissibility of abortion, that concedes from the beginning that the fetus is a person. Again, not that she necessarily believes that, but that okay, it's not clear the fetus is a person probably, but let's just say the fetus is a person. Does that mean that abortion is necessarily immoral or wrong? Our answer to that is no. And that's immediately followed by the famous hypothetical, which is really the credible imagined situation that really made this essay strike out, the idea of the famous violinist. Imagining that, she says, you wake up in the morning and find yourself back to back in bed with an unconscious violinist, a famous unconscious violinist. He has been found to have a fatal kidney ailment, and the Society of Music Lovers has canvassed all the available medical records and found that you alone have the right blood type to help. They have therefore kidnapped you, and last night the violinist's circulatory system was plugged into yours so that your kidneys can be used to extract poisons from his blood as well as yours. And then you find out that you can hook up to this other person's circulatory system. They are depending upon your body to survive, and that they would, if you were to unhook yourself or unplug yourself from that violinist, that he would die. And then the question is, do you have the right to unplug yourself? And her answer to that is, of course you do. Of course you do. It gets into some important technicalities. She has some other really interesting hypotheticals, the idea of the expanding baby, the different ways of imaginary ways of getting pregnant and things like that. But that is really the really interesting situation that she brings up. The question is pregnancy like that? Is pregnant? We would all agree that if you woke up and you found yourself hooked up to a person who needed your use of your body in that way to survive, that whatever you would do in that situation, I would imagine that different people would do different things. Whatever you would do, you have the right to unplug yourself, to unhook yourself from that person. And so the question is whether that situation is similar enough to the situation of being pregnant, where we would say, well, people find themselves pregnant for all sorts of, in all sorts of situations. And many of those pregnancies are unplanned and unwanted, and people do different things. The question is, do they have the right to end, to terminate the pregnancy, to get an abortion? If the situation with the famous violinist is relevantly close enough to the situation of being pregnant, the answer to that has got to be yes. And that's really the point she wants to make. Of course, the question is whether her hypothetical, this wild hypothetical, this ingenious hypothetical involving the violinist, is actually relevantly similar enough to being pregnant. Extremely interesting essay. The idea that abortion is wrong because the fetus has a right to life, which, of course, if it is a person, is true. Right? She's conceded that the fetus is indeed a person. So if persons, as she admits that persons have the right to life, then the fetus has a right to life too, which would mean that it would be wrong to kill it, right? But that is not quite true, as she points out. So all of us have the right to life. But that doesn't mean that we have the right to absolutely everything we might need to continue living. Right? If my continued existence in some way or another violates someone else's rights, right? If the only way that I can continue my existence is by killing somebody else or violating their rights, then I don't have the right to that. It's like the thing she tells about or the situation with the brothers and the candy, right? If grandma gives one of the brothers a big box of candy and says, this is yours, and he eats it all himself, even though his little brother cries because he doesn't get any, he hasn't wronged his little brother. Right? He's only wronged his little brother if she gave the box of candy to both of them, told them to share it, and he ate it all. So even though, the fetus is being killed in abortion, there's no wrong that's done because it's not a wrongful killing. It's an extremely interesting way of arguing this thing, well worth looking into. So read through the essay, and you really, what you're trying to do is just to get an account of the basic argument, so that you can compare it with Marquis' argument and come to some conclusion of your own. If we look at Marquis' argument here, I'll just go on for a little bit longer. Why abortion is immoral. Of course, this is, again, arguing without reference to, arguing that the fetus is a person. Neither one thinks that you can resolve the abortion question by either proving that the fetus is a person or proving that the fetus is not a person. That the ethics of abortion, no question about whether, or no answer to whether abortion is right or wrong really follows from determining that question, whether the fetus is a person. And he does not believe that that's the right way. The first part of the essay is really taken up by trying to show that one of the reasons that, or maybe the main reason that the abortion debate seems to be such a fruitless thing is that there are flaws in both arguments that make them unconvincing, and that the real way to go, if we look at, where is it? I can find it. There's in section 2, right? Yeah, okay. In section 2, where he basically takes a different tack, right? And starts talking not immediately about abortion, but about killing. Killing. What makes killing wrong? Which is an interesting philosopher's way of approaching the thing. What's the wrong-making feature of killing someone? Well, really, we start with the first premise, which is up here in the beginning of section 2. It is wrong to kill us. So whatever else we may believe, it is and why we may believe it, it is a stubborn and deeply entrenched idea that it's wrong to kill us, that it would be wrong for me to kill you, would it be wrong for you to kill me? We can sort of agree on that, right? And so then we ask, what is it that makes it wrong? That's the wrong-making feature. What is it that makes killing? What is it that would make killing me or killing you wrong? And he thinks the answer to that is pretty obvious. He says, what primarily makes killing wrong is neither its effect on the murderer nor its effect on the victim's friends and relatives, but its effect on the victim. That is, if we, what is it that makes killing wrong? It's not that it's not primarily that you're depriving people of a friend or a family member. That's a secondary effect. What primarily makes killing somebody wrong is the effects on the victim. And as he says, the loss of one's life is one of the greatest losses one can suffer, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That is that what makes killing wrong is that you're preventing that person from enjoying their future. So it's the worst, basically, with some exceptions, unthinkably horrible exceptions. It's the worst thing you can do to somebody because you're taking away all of their future goods, all of their future possible experiences. And there are other wrong-making features of killing someone, but the central one, the essential one, is that you are robbing that person of their future. You are depriving that person of their future. Okay. It may be what makes killing other creatures in our minds not really wrong. For instance, the creatures that we raise and kill for meat, well, you're depriving the cow or the chicken of their future too when you kill it. That's true. But you're not depriving them of a future like ours. That is, if we did believe that cows and chickens had future experiences waiting for them that were just like ours, you and I as human beings, our experiences, then we would have to say it would be wrong to kill them. Right? So the general idea is that it's wrong to kill anybody who has a future like ours because that's what makes it wrong to kill us. Well, then the next step is quite obvious, and that is that he's saying, well, the fetus has a future like ours. The fetus isn't a person, but the fetus is a something, a living something, and that living something has a future which is much like ours. So if it's wrong to kill you and me because you're taking away a future like the kind of future that you and I have as human beings, the kinds of experiences that we're capable of, then certainly it would be wrong to kill a fetus too, because that fetus has a future like ours. That is a future which is most likely filled with the kind of experiences that we value. So again, quite an interesting argument on the other side. So I don't know. I mean, really, your job or take a look at these two essays. They're fully readable. They're a little long, but don't cheat yourself and just Google whatever the Wikipedia thing. I mean, have the experience. You're going to be writing an essay on these authors, so actually read them because it'll show. The difference will show. Get a sense of what their basic arguments are, which is really not that difficult, and then you'll as you'll see, your writing assignment is just to come up with your own argument as to why you think one of these arguments is better than the other.